Well, let's turn to John Gong. He's a professor of economics at Beijing's University of International Business and Economy. Welcome back to the show, John.
Thank you.
So what was the overarching message that you got from this speech by the U.S. trade representative? U.S.-China trade ties look as rocky as ever.
Well, I think Mrs. Tai, pretty much used the same argument of the Trump administration, resorting to the same kinds of old accusations. Many of them, I think, are already gone. I think, in particular, these three examples she used in her speech are all, very misleading here. For example, the steel industry, example he used. What does she mean by that? She's going to want to create some steel jobs in the U.S.? I mean, there are 10 million jobs out there companies can't find. I mean, he's talking about the steel jobs. Another example, the solar power industry. That's another very misleading example in my view, because the subsidies are provided by almost all the countries, the leading countries in this industry. I mean, there are tons of subsidies provided by the U.S. government, tons of subsidies provided by the European Union. The companies gone out of business, not just in U.S. and Europe, but tons of companies in China gone out of business as well. I think what's happening today in the solar power industry is purely a result of very cruel but very effective market competition. The last example she used about the semiconductor industry. I think this is something that was forced upon the Chinese government. I mean, look at the companies that are put on the entity list. Huawei is cut off supplies of semiconductors. What can the Chinese government do? Of course, it's going to support its own indigenous development of semiconductor industry. So I think overall, the message I can understand, it's a middle class or working class kind of a trade policy. And she emphasized the benefits to the American middle class, the American workers. I kind of understand it, but the examples she used are just misleading. And I think the approach she's going to use is also going to be not very effective.
I'm glad you bring out these discrepancies, John, because, while campaigning, President Joe Biden, he denounced the trade war with China under his predecessor, yet 9 months into the White House, and he hasn't reversed any of those tariffs or hardline policies. In your view, is this a political or an economic decision?
Absolutely, it's very much politically motivated. I think in today's Washington's political climate, it's very difficult to remove tariffs outright. It needs political capital here. And I think his priority right now is to pass the infrastructure bill. I mean, it's a $2 trillion, $1.5 trillion, doesn't matter. He needs every vote to pass that bill. So he doesn't want to spend any political capital on something like about China's business. But I think there's one silver lining here, as Nathan has mentioned, is that she sets out the possibility that companies can apply for exemption. And I think that could be quite a bit of companies that will be able to get exemptions, and that would be just tantamount to removing the tariffs. And I think that's a very good sign, and I hope more companies will be getting their exemptions. Ultimately, these tariffs are being paid by American consumers. As the Christmas comes, I think the American people, American consumers do deserve a break, and hope that Mrs. Tai will provide this break for American people.
Right. And of course, as we know, the Phase 1 trade deal expires at the end of the year. Given the current climate, what happens next?
I think she said very clearly that there will be no second phase negotiation. I think the coming meeting between Vice Premier Liu He and her will be mostly about how to use the next 3 months left of the year to further implement the Phase 1 trade agreement. I think China is short by 26% to 69%, depending on which side's custom statistics you're looking at. But overall, I think in this climate, in the wake of this pandemic, 69% fulfillment rate is actually not bad. It's not just that Chinese companies are not buying, Chinese consumers are not buying from America. It's because the American companies can't deliver the things back to China. I mean, the containers are stranded in Los Angeles, in Long Beach, California, in Baltimore, in Savannah, in Charleston. The containers are not going back. I mean, look at the freight cost right now. It's going through the roof because the containers are all stranded on U.S. soil. So I think there's a technical hurdles that we have to overcome. It's not, the fact that we haven't really up to 100% of the implementation is not so much because Chinese side is not intent on fulfilling its commitment, it's mostly because of the pandemic.
Plenty still to watch ahead. John Gong, thank you for your analysis as always.